My name's Joe Alfano. Born and raised Yonkers, New York, not too far from here. Um, I always drew as a kid. It was always my thing. Uh, Drew in high school, obviously, on every single book and wall and backpack I could possibly get my hands on. And then that was pretty much it. I hadn't drawn in 12, 15 years, something like that. Ended up losing a best friend of mine.
Mhm.
And I just kind of needed something to do, you know. I was drawing at night, sitting at the kitchen table, just drawing, whether it be his name or I drew a lot of sad Bart Simpsons and stuff like
Yeah.
that in the beginning, and that's just kind of what I did. And then I guess it had been like a few months later that I started posting stuff on Instagram, my personal Instagram. Got a lot of interest in things, and then eventually people started asking me like, "Hey, could you draw this for me?" Did my
Okay.
first canvas. I think I charged him like $30. He gave me like 80 or something like that. And I'm like, I didn't know what it was worth. I didn't realize that there was actually a way to make money.
Yeah.
I pretty much had it with my job. I was in the automotive industry.
Okay.
Um, I was on the way out. And once this started happening, I kind of cut my hours back. I was freelancing. I was writing estimates on the side, and then art just kind of took over and was financially capable of just doing art.
Okay. So let's like go back to I kind of want to start like you just mentioned uh even before you started doing this, even just scribbling on the table. Let's go back to the automotive stuff, right? So like going into that, what were you doing in that industry? Like what was it, just a job? Was it a business? What were you doing there?
For years, I mean, that's pretty much all I ever did was work in the automotive industry, detailing. I was a mechanic in dealerships. I did body work and prep work and stuff and auto body shops. Then I ended up getting a call from a friend of mine in the industry, asked me to come. I ran a shop for almost 10 years. Managed it, parts, you name it. I pretty much did it all.
Okay.
Another friend of mine in the automotive industry had asked me if I wanted to go to a shop in Mayapack. His plan was to buy it. He didn't want nothing to do with it really, so he was like, kind of go up there, learn it for the year. And then when I take over, it was basically supposed to be part, pretty much mine.
Right.
And I found out about a year into it that that wasn't the case.
Okay.
So that pretty much just, I was already done with the automotive industry. So that kind of just put the whole damper on it. I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah, the deal just kind of went sour, I
Hmm.
guess. Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, that definitely happens. Um, and then I guess so you were kind of done with that, trying to you were kind of running the business at that point though?
Yeah, I mean, I basically was. I was doing everything that he had asked me to do. I knew it inside and out. I knew the vendors, I knew the customers, I knew the insurance companies,
Right.
so I pretty much,
And sometimes things just don't work out the way you think they are, right?
yeah, my
Right.
boss just kind of, I guess he saw it in my face that like, I had it. He asked me like, you still here? Did you check out? And that was kind of where the conversation went.
Okay. So then going from that transition into now the art and the artwork, you had mentioned, a friend passed away and that was kind of what re-sparked
Yeah,
your
it
interest in
was
that?
actually, I was at his wake, and I mean, I drew over the years. Sitting at a friend's house, drawing a pizza box. It was always lettering, graffiti. I would always do. I drew the Ninja Turtles 100,000 times in the third grade. You know what I mean? So it was just something easy for me that I knew how to do already.
Right.
But I never realized that anybody took notice of what I was doing. And at his wake, his girlfriend had said to me, like, "Do you still draw?" So I was kind of taken back by it. Like that's not something that I thought. And then she actually told me that like he told her I drew that it was really good at what I did. So that's kind of what that's it.
Initiated
Just
that?
literally put. I went and bought a thing of printer paper and a pack of pencils and a sharpener, and I just drew
Right.
over and over and over again.
Man, that's tough. But that's also interesting that it's just something so small like that that kind of
Yeah,
flipped
it
that
literally, yeah.
switch.
People say light bulbs and sparks and stuff. Like it literally happens. It's
Yeah.
literally all it takes.
Interesting. So I guess that's your inspiration for your artwork. If you had to say, obviously now I think it's grown into something much larger in just a short amount of
I
time,
was gonna
right?
say rapidly, yeah,
Yeah.
quickly.
So what was that experience like, going from just, kind of doodles on pizza boxes and whatnot to now you have an Instagram with how many followers on it? Over 3,000 or
Yeah,
something?
between 3 and 4, something like
Right.
that.
So yeah, you now have that, a substantial, relatively substantial following. Obviously a super dedicated, uh, you know, fan base, whatever you want to call it, group of people who follow you. because I see all the time you're posting, these commissions that you're doing. So there's obviously people interested in the artwork. So what is that like going from basically nothing to where you're at now?
It's funny because there kind of was no transition, and people had told me that too, like that it's just going to be, and
Quick.
I have a good friend of mine that owns a very successful clothing brand, and so I pick his brain a lot. A lot of times he offers information that I didn't even know I needed,
Right.
kind of thing, and he's the one that kind of changed my mindset. Like, you're just basically giving your stuff away. You're doing it just because you want to do it,
Right.
and then somebody's willing to pay you for it. He's like, you have to look at it differently. You have to look at it. This is your time. This is your business. This is your passion. You need to start charging for things.
Right.
And he said to me, like, be ready, because we all laughed that I wrote out on the back of literally on the back of an envelope in pencil, like I would write Jake,
Yeah.
Ninja Turtle canvas, $30,
Yeah.
and that's how I kept my records. And he's like, you have to be prepared because it's going to happen. It's going to happen quickly. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm a success story or anything, but it's
No, it's
I'm capable of this being a full-time job.
yeah. No, I mean, even that alone, that's more than I think most people will or can get to. And then to factor in the aspect of just doing it in such a short amount of time, I would say it is in a sense a success story in that regard.
Yeah, it's crazy. Actually write down states. Obviously most of my stuff was really local, friends, people I knew
Right.
for a while actually, and then I started noticing, like in my where I was writing the addresses down, that I was covering some states in the country, and
Yep.
now some countries. I got
Out
about three
outside
or
of the
four
U.S.
countries outside the U.S. of people I don't know. I just did something for somebody in Amsterdam,
There you go.
so
Yeah. No, it's definitely interesting. You can go so many different directions from this. I think it's what you said. What kind of just like sparked a thought in my mind right there was you talking to your friend who owns the clothing brand. Him giving you advice sometimes that you don't even know that you needed. And I think that's just such a powerful thing. And kind of for me anyway, the reason I wanted to do this, in terms of starting a podcast and getting some more information out there, just because I wanted to talk to like real people. A lot of these times you see many podcasts or celebrities or people who have made it, whatever that means. Obviously notable people, but at the same time, like it's not always super
they were all me and
relatable.
you at one time,
Yeah,
though.
yeah, it's not super relatable, and you're getting kind of that after the fact, like that kind of looking back at things
hmm
perspective. I
Already
wanted
successful, already,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wanted to get that perspective of people who are still in the process, still, doing these things.
I think a huge thing with my friend that I always talk to, and anybody else, in the beginning I said a lot of ifs, like my plan is to do A, B, and C if I make it,
Right.
if I can. And when you start that, like when I make it, when this happens for me,
Right.
your mindset has to change, obviously, especially if you're giving your all to something,
Yeah.
and I do. I put 12, 16 hours a day in.
Yeah. No, you have to believe in it. And I think past that too, I mean, obviously it's more than just believing in it. You do, like you said, you have to put in that work and act on the things that you're talking about. But you're definitely right. I mean, that first step is believing in yourself, taking that leap.
It's like anything. When you
Yeah.
start to see a difference, obviously it feels better. Whether you go to the gym, if you see
Yep.
progress, you want to keep going.
Yep.
And I think it really started for me when I did my first round of hoodies.
Right.
He told me I had to buy 24, and I was like, what am I going to do with 24 hoodies? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know 24 people that are going to buy hoodies, and they sold in like a day and a half, something
Yep.
like 30 something hours they sold. And when I went to go pick up more from him, that's when he said to me, as soon as I walked through the door, I'll never forget. Walked in just like I normally do, so it's up to him, and he goes, confidence looks really good on you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was an ego booster, not, I don't want to use the word ego, but it
No, it's
made me
true.
feel like, I can do this. And the next time was 48 hoodies, and they went
Yep.
almost as quickly as the first 24, and things like that help you,
Yeah.
put things into perspective of where this could potentially go.
Yeah. I remember when I started my business, like the first order I got was a couple $100 or something. And I was like, oh, okay, that's, like that's really cool. I was like $200. That's awesome. Somebody's going to give me $300 for something that I made.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, obviously I did understand, I'm bringing, at that time I did understand I was bringing a certain value. I had equipment that they didn't have access to. Like there was other factors into that, but just, having that reassurance of somebody actually giving you
Yeah,
money
of
for
course,
something
of
is
course, and
so,
it
so
makes you
impactful.
want to be better at what you do. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's always been my goal, no matter what, is to just. I'm never going to be like some people. I understand that there's some artists out there, graffiti artists, muralists, and stuff that I can't fathom what they do.
Right.
But as long as when I look back at my my time op from last year, that my stuff is
Right.
years better.
Right. And that's interesting too because, you mentioned, like, seeing that progress. It's like sometimes you don't see the progress either when you're, like, day to day, you even specifically, like, the gym example, I go to the gym almost every day, and it's like you don't see the progress, but then when I go onto my phone, like Snapchat or Time Hop, whatever it is, and you
Yeah.
see a memory from 2 years ago, and I even look at, like, my face or something or wherever I was, I
Yeah,
was like,
but it feels
"Holy
good.
shit."
It shows that I think that's a lot of people's problem in life is that they work hard and they don't see the results, no
Yeah.
matter what it is.
Yeah, and you don't look ba you don't see it in the time that you're doing it, so, like, being able to look back and, like,
Yeah.
having that being able to see that progress from a specific time period
I mean,
is
I
amazing.
watch like reels and stuff that I did,
Yeah,
and I see where I went wrong doing certain things,
right.
and it's just yeah, like you said, it's cool to have proof almost.
Yeah, you have that. And, I mean, also, it's you're mentioning reels a lot of the time. Like, what I'm thinking of is social media in general. Like, forget about just your artwork, it's also a matter of how you brand yourself and the way you make a video. Like,
100%. Yeah.
I look back at, before I started doing all of the merch and everything, I was editing videos for people. And, I would go back and look at some of those videos, and
Yeah, it's
they're
good.
rough. They're
Yeah.
rough, but at the time people still like those. And now I'm like, well, I could do that and then some. So that's also really interesting to see that change over time too.
I actually have a lot of like my early stuff that I never got rid of, and a friend of mine who's an extremely talented artist. Every time he comes and he sees something, he's like, "Oh my god, it's terrible that line work," and he's like, "But that's what's gonna make it worth money one day when
Yeah.
people could look back and see like this is your early
Yeah.
stuff." And I'm like, "It's kind of cool, yeah." I stare at those imperfections
Yep.
constantly.
Yep. Yeah, I still have boxes of them. The first business cards that I ordered. They don't even I didn't even put all the information on them. I just put, like, a QR code because I was like, "These are gonna be super sleek, like, people are gonna use this," and then I do realize, like, especially now, I'm like, it might have been good to put the website on it, or I mean, I
I,
put
lo-
on the phone number and the email, but nobody knows the QR code, so I'm like, maybe like, looking back at it, I was like, maybe that was a mistake.
I completely forgot to put my email on my first business
Right.
cards. So people were like, "Where's your email?"
Yeah, I'm always I have a couple of them up at the tattoo shop, and Chris was, like, working the front one day, and he and he told me, he's like, 4 people came in looking for shirts, and, they were older, so I gave them the card, and they go like, "What the fuck is this?" They didn't know what it was, the QR code on the back. They're like, "I gotta scan it with my phone to get to the website," and I was like,
As they flip their phone
"Yeah,
open.
yeah." I was like, so that was a realization to me, just, obviously, I prefer that. I think it's super cool, and I know a lot of people my age, and
Yeah, of
even some
course.
older people too know how to use it. But having that realization and then adjusting from that, growing from that is definitely important too. So I guess I want to talk about also a little bit about the branding of what you do, because obviously, it is about the artwork, but on top of that, I think you have done a really good job of just branding what you're doing, like making the Tooned Out name, and getting that out to people. So could you speak a little bit to that?
Uh, and that was a goal from long before the artwork. I collect sneakers for 30 years now. Um, I used to be very big into obviously trying to match your sneakers into your shirt at all times, and there was a lot of colorways and stuff that were coming out that there was nothing for.
Right.
So I always wanted to create something, and I had a million ideas in my head, and this kind of just gave me an outlet to start. I'm not trying to create a clothing brand, but it kind of gave me that outlet to be able to do it as well.
Right.
People, same thing like I said before with the artwork. Like I knew my friends were going to buy shirts, but now I'm shipping them across the country and stuff to people that I never met before, and it gives me more fuel to just when I have a good idea, let's put it on a shirt.
Right. So do you have a strategy at all for the way that you brand the business? Is there something specifically you wanted to promote, like, in the messaging of it, or is it just kind of like what you're feeling at the time?
I think eventually, yeah, and there's a lot of messages and stuff like that I'd like to get across, obviously on clothing, but I think part of it now is just build it first. Just go with what my ideas. The guy that makes my shirt that prints my shirts for me, he
Yeah.
I just get random ideas. You know that like they
Yep.
just come to me and let's put it on a shirt. And what's the worst case scenario?
Yep.
I want it for myself regardless. So and that's kind of how it happens. A lot of the things I do are just for me, and those are the ones that end up people want.
Yeah. I mean, that's true too, though. A lot of the times I think people get caught up in trying to figure out what other people want when
Yeah.
other people don't even know what they want. So having something that you know that you like
There's plenty of things I'd buy
is,
that I didn't know
yeah,
I needed.
yeah. But it's just like having your own vision of it and just putting that out there too. People will naturally gravitate towards that. I really
Yeah.
believe in that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just I'm confident. I'm confident in what I do. I'm confident that I can take this to another level. Um, might take me longer than some others, or it may be a lot quicker than others. But
Well, you go at your
I'm
own pace.
exactly. I'm
Yeah.
ready for it if it comes, when it comes.
Yeah, when it comes.
And for now, for the time being, I'm just gonna keep trying to find that balance in my artwork between doing commission work and now that I have the studio, doing things that have been on my brain. A
For
lot
your
of time,
Yeah.
the difference between now and when I started was when I started, I just literally, I would think of a character. I'd wake up in the morning and like I couldn't wait till I had a few minutes to sit down and draw what was on my brain. And then after about 3 or 4 months, that went out the window because it all became commission work, which
Right.
I love, I appreciate, and but sometimes it's four Mickey Mouses in a row, and
Yeah.
it doesn't give you that chance to do what you want to do. So now I have a nice balance of both.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you're talking about balance too, and I think on top of just balancing what you want to do and what people want or what people are ordering, I think there's another balance that I'm interested in specifically with artists is that balance between being an artist and being a businessman, right? Like, I think
It's the hardest
especially
part.
today, yeah, especially today, they're gone are the days of like you're just an artist or you're just a businessman. I think everybody has to kind of adapt to that. Even myself, who I don't really consider myself an artist by any means, but I still have to learn in order to get my business out there. I still have to learn Photoshop, Premiere. I got to know how to edit
Yeah,
videos and shoot videos. So in a sense, I am practicing a lot of creative elements just in order to run my business.
of
So how do
course.
you balance that yourself?
I'm
Do,
still learning.
yeah,
I'm still learning. Part of it is, like I said, I've ran shops. I've done things like that. I was always, no matter whether I worked in a dealership or not, I was always in somewhat of a managerial position. And after being the last two shops I was at, like I did everything but make the owners money, kind of thing. I ran it as if it was mine. So I understand that when you do a job, that $8 roll of tape comes right off the top. It's whether you use the whole roll of tape or not.
yep,
So luckily, I kind of had those. Markers are expensive, paint is expensive, supplies are expensive,
right,
and so I kind of knew as soon as this started going somewhere that this is all stuff that has to be incorporated. So
yeah,
I'm having a hard time with the techie part of it. I'm a pencil and paper kind of guy, a text message guy.
right,
Um, so having spreadsheets and stuff like that, and due dates, and
right,
but as far as the business aspect, luckily it came fairly
right.
uh,
How
natural.
yeah, I mean, how do you think you will adjust to that in the future? Because obviously, the technology is not going away. Is that something that you think you will eventually need to adapt? Do you plan on
Yeah,
adapting it?
I'm in the process. I'm learning a lot more things. Procreate,
Right.
um, which I really had no interest in. I always thought it was a cool thing. To me, it doesn't feel like drawing.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I have
No
the
matter what you do,
pencil.
yeah,
It's like,
you get the matte paper that feels like paper, screen protector. So, but I have no choice now. There's a lot of designs and stuff that I'd like to do for not only for merch but prints.
right.
Um, I'd like to do shows, Comic Con and conventions and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But I need that digital to be able to do it to create my prints,
Yeah.
and so it's coming. I'm open to it.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about cost too. It is something that will get your costs down in the sense of like instead of having to buy 50 different cans of paint or whatever markers, whatever colors you need, right? It's all just it's a pencil now,
Yep.
and you just tap the different brush you want. You tap the
Once I have to
different
stop cleaning,
yeah,
like I would airbrush way more if I didn't have to clean the airbrush gun.
yeah.
So that's where the Procreate comes in handy.
Yeah, it's something it just makes it a little bit more accessible and I think while I agree with you, it's not a one for one comparison to the physical element of using a material like a marker or something. It is something that will get your cost down and help you increase productivity
Yeah,
and
of
and
course, of
and
course.
maybe even
That I could
increase
sit on
like
my couch and watch TV and do
yeah,
instead of having to be at the studio and sitting at my
yeah,
desk. There's so many upsides to it.
yeah,
I'm a creature of habit.
yeah.
Uh, I'm
Let's
I'm not in that computer. I'm on the cusp of that computer generation.
right,
So
right. Let's talk about the studio for a minute because you just opened this and I've been
huge.
seeing all the stuff you've been doing there. So just tell me about that.
Well, shortly, I mean, the last two places I lived were my studio. I was in a fairly small apartment. I had a
Like this. We're literally in
yeah,
my this is
yeah.
my apartment right now. So
So now, trying to run your full business out of it, and supplies, and canvases and frames and all that stuff that I bought. It was just it was literally literally the walls were closing in on me, and I knew probably about 6 months ago, like, I need a studio space, and looking around budget wise, I'm thinking I was going to rent somebody's garage somewhere, and um, I needed that peace of mind. And then I found myself not creating. Like, I was not working because I felt like I was always in I
there was
slept
no
basically
divide.
in my office, if that's the way. It wasn't it wasn't my apartment that my studio was in. It was my studio was in my apartment, kind of
Right.
thing. So I found the studio. I saw a sign hanging, office for rent. Um, Went on a long shot. I figured it was gonna be way out of my budget, and the landlord wanted to make a deal just as bad as I did, and here we are. I mean, it's pretty much perfect. I have a nice little waiting room. I have my area where I could paint and keep my supplies, and then I have a full, my office where my desk and business goes on.
Yeah.
So
So what do you think the benefit specifically for you is of having that separation between like personal and work? Like what is that benefit to you?
number one, it's only happened once, luckily, but like sometimes you just mentally check out, and I'm able to shut the lights off and shut the compressor off and go home,
Right.
and that peace of mind. There's a weight lifted, and but I've tried to create a space that like that I want to be at. I was there Saturday night, 1:30 in the morning, like, and I didn't feel like I was at work. I could go home anytime I want.
Right.
And it just creatively for me, light. I have natural light. These are all things that are so much better for the mental, especially
Right.
when you have to create for a living.
So having that kind of that separation
Mm.
between workspace and living space,
it's
obviously important. I
it's
mean,
huge. It's
yeah.
literally huge. I feel completely different than I did 3 months ago.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I can relate to that a little bit too, because sometimes if I'm not printing shirts, but I'm still like working on things, computer work, uh, sending out orders to suppliers and things like that, sometimes I will work from here and then I'll sit in the house all day, especially like when it's winter and it gets dark at 4 o'clock. I'll just sit in the house all day and then it gets dark outside and I'm looking outside and I'm like,
You missed the whole
what
day.
did
The
I
whole day.
do?
Yeah.
What did I do today? Even though I got stuff done, it still feels like you weren't productive, and that's not good.
Space is so good for the mental, and
Yeah.
just not having to move blank canvases out of the way to get something. Like, I don't have to move anything in the studio to get to something else, and
Yeah.
it's huge. It makes me feel like, I don't know,
That's important.
like I want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key too, because ultimately, like if you're not enjoying what you're doing, obviously, it's a little bit different when you're running a business because I mean, it is a business in a certain sense, but also like if you're just strictly running a business that's not like a creative element too, you do kind of have to have that space where you're able to disconnect because you're not going to always enjoy it either. Like you
Hmm.
mentioned, I know you posted a few weeks ago now, right? You were working on some projects. They weren't really, it wasn't coming out the way that you wanted it to, and you just shut it down.
I literally, I before I could even give myself a chance to get mad, I shut down, I
Right,
closed the doors, I leashed the dog, and we left. And
right,
it felt really good on the way home to be able to, like, I don't have to take this home with me now.
yeah. Forget about it.
I can go home and put on TV, or and
Right,
just check out for the night.
yeah,
And it's huge. You need that. It's necessary when.
right. Yeah, I was watching a YouTube video yesterday actually of this guy who has an engraving business. It's something that I was thinking about adding to the products. Hopefully, in the future, we'll have that. Um, but I was listening to him talk about some of the things that he was going through in his business, and one of the things he recommended doing was getting a separate cell phone line too. And I just think that's another example of creating that divide between you and your work, because you should enjoy your work and obviously you should put the time into it.
Yeah.
But just even something little like that, like you're not on your phone doing something personal or talking to somebody in your personal life, and then next thing you know, you get a business call and it's like here's their voicemail and blah blah.
The
And
juggle is definitely tough.
yeah,
I can only imagine how some people do it with
yeah.
10, 20, 30 times the amount of things that
Hmm.
I have going on. But
But
um,
that's why it's important, you create that boundary, that separation between what you're doing and and your personal life too. You have to. because
I
you'll
haven't had
burn
too
out.
much of a personal life, but I'm not forcing myself, you know. Like I said, I didn't need to be at the studio till 1:30 at night, but I boxed things up that I would have potentially had to do Monday morning. It was just
Right,
peace of mind, and I knew I could have stopped at any
right,
point. There was no rush to do it, but I've luckily I've created a space that I want to be at.
right. I find honestly for me, I'll work a lot later when if there's stuff to do, I'll work late. But at the end of the day, too, it's nice to have that ability to just leave, you know?
Yeah, it's great.
And even sometimes having that knowledge of knowing I can leave whenever I want, you're a little bit more relaxed and you can work longer in that regard.
Yeah.
So that you don't feel that pressure that's kind of eating at you to make it be like, "Yeah, I got to get out of
The
here."
dog keeps me balanced because
Yeah.
he lets me know when it's time, when he's got to eat. It's time to go home.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would probably find myself there a lot later most nights.
That's funny. Yeah. So I guess for your brand, for your business, for everything, what are your goals? Do you set goals? How do you set goals? Things like that.
Um, Usually my goals at the beginning of the year are financial. That's been my biggest one. You know, I'd like to reach. You know, I did X, Y, and Z one year, and you know, and I don't go. I go. I set a good enough goal above the one before that, but realistic. That's what I've been focused on. I do have other goals as far as, like I said, I'd like to be. I'd like to be very proficient at digital. I'd like to be able to make prints that'll really, not only will that free up some time of mine, it'll give people a chance to that maybe not necessarily want to spend money on an original artwork that they want to print. You know, so it'll give people the opportunity. It'll give me the opportunity to have more inventory to be able to do shows and stuff like that. So digital is a big goal of mine. Um, Merch, I'd like to be. I'd like to double, maybe triple what I'm doing currently in merch,
Sure.
which
So
um,
so like how do you parse that out? I mean, obviously you're talking about setting up like yearly goals, which are important. Do you set up like any short-term goals that you ever try to hit, or are you just more so just put in the work and
um,
then have that end of the year goal
no, I
in
don't
town?
necessarily do short term goals because a lot within, the art industry in general, whether it be tattoo, this, that, like there's some months where I'm creating a ton of money, but I may not necessarily get it that month, say, or uh, the money will come in the following month, say. So it's hard for me to put timelines on something. Sometimes things take a lot longer. So I figure if I put them as the yearly goal, they're a lot more achievable.
Okay.
They're a lot more realistic, I think.
Hmm, interesting. I mean, for me, I try to have a little bit of both, but I do understand what you're saying in the respect that there'll be, like you said, there'll be some months where I'll do X amount and then I'll do a tenth of that the next month, and you just don't know. Some months you don't.
Or creative blocks.
Yeah.
There might be a month where, or 2 months, or where I'm just kind of going with the flow, and I'm
Right.
not, my brain's not there necessarily.
Right.
I try to tell people all the time, like people that don't have a deadline for something, like be patient. I'm not pushing you off just because you see me post something else before yours. It just means that my brain is not in yours, and I can't do that.
Right. Right.
If I can't give it 100% or 120%, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's definitely true. I think that's also interesting in the sense that that's something that you have a lot more leeway with as an artist. I think people understand that more versus, like a business. If I tell somebody I'm not in the space to make your shirt,
Yes.
it's not necessarily the same.
I have to
Um,
learn a little bit more budgeting
yeah,
my time for certain things and not put them off as long.
yeah,
But like you said, people give me a little bit more
right.
freedom in that sense.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like if people are understanding of that and you're able to do that, then there's nothing wrong with it either, Because at the end of the day, you're not necessarily doing the exact same thing as a business where I'm just producing a product. At the end of the day, you're kind of creating something and using your brain to to create that thing. It's not just like
I
for me using a machine to just
I'd be
create.
lying if I said that I didn't have 3 or 4 or 5 canvases that I started 2 years
Hmm.
ago that are still sitting in the studio unfinished. But I can't put out shit. I refuse to put out shit. Um,
Right. That's important too, though, making sure the quality of your work is consistent because I think a lot of people get in the habit of producing, artist or business owner, they get in the habit of just putting things out there and sometimes they're not checking the quality and ensuring that what they're putting out there is something that's going to be received well. You know, you want to make sure that every time somebody gets a piece of artwork from you that they're getting a quality piece of work, because
Yeah,
that's
of course. And I mean, I can't always guarantee. Again, there's plenty of people that are better than me and stuff like that. But I can guarantee when I give you something that it's the best that I gave the best I could.
definitely, yeah, that's important. What would you say, obviously, like, you wanna make sure you're doing your best, but what would you say, like, what is one mistake that you made, from a business perspective that you think, you've learned from and since the start of it?
I think not keeping track from the very beginning. I think my not having that, you know, Excel sheet or
Yeah,
to be able to look back. I think it would have helped me a lot on pricing, on timing. Where in my head I priced something for 2 hours and it took me 4 hours. And keeping track of that. So the next time I did it, I remembered that, hey, this one's going to give you a hard time. Maybe you should.
right,
Um, Not getting everybody's email address and addresses from the beginning.
right,
Just I just wish I would have had a little bit more of a bookkeeping mind from the
definitely.
get. Other than that, I mean, I think I've pretty much did things the way I wanted to.
And by the way, that's been, like, kind of the answer of I mean, Raphael mentioned something similar with just keeping track of what he's doing, and specifically, he was talking about, taxes. He's one of the tattoo artists that I interviewed, last time, but, he was talking about taxes and keeping track of that, and I can definitely relate to that too, just thinking, like, you can see right there, there's a little pile of sticky notes on top of those books. Those were my orders the first year that I started, M3 Merch. I was just writing stuff down on sticky notes, which,
There's no way for you to know that it's going
yeah,
to be what it is.
right,
Like I said, I in no way did I think. I mean, my original goal when I started selling artwork, I wanted an iPad.
right.
That was the only thing. Like I literally
Make
kept
enough.
track enough so that when I knew when I on the envelope that the total was there, that I can go mine. Like that was my only goal. That's the only reason I think I even wrote it down, or else.
Right.
Um,
But yeah, since then, for me anyway, I've started using the website, and I know you're not a big fan of
I
it.
promise. I promise. I'll get there.
But that's fine. I mean, either way, I'm still putting the orders in through the website. Like, even when you text me an order or something, I still put it in manually, just because that's what's keeping track of all of my numbers for the month and everything. So that's kind of been my process, and how I've grown since starting this. I've had the same realization of you, just in the sense of knowing that it is important to keep track of sales and contact information, and
And
seeing that growth over
the
time.
first year, I mean, even though I was writing it down in pencil, like I knew when I saw a picture of something I did, I knew who owned it, and I got to a point where like I literally I'd have to post on Instagram like who owns this because I didn't remember, and like I wish I did. I wish I
Right.
would have written that all down from the beginning because I wish I remembered who had what of mine.
Yeah. What do you I guess, like, moving forward from that, what do you plan on doing, kind of, to or what have you done to keep track of those sales better? Do you
Uh,
have a system now? Are you planning on creating a system
for
for
the
that?
most part, everything goes in Excel. I'm trying to be really good at like putting down the date that you actually ask me for a commission.
Right.
I want to start putting a projected date in my life. Even if I overshoot, if it's a 2 week job and I put it 6 weeks out, but I want to have a projected date for delivery. Which right now, I mean, it's great that I have that freedom from customers, but at the same time, like I get too lenient with myself.
Right.
So I'd like to be a little bit more on the money with delivering more rapidly with a
A little more structure.
little more structure. Yeah, it's
Okay.
a good word.
What do you what do you, you have a website, right? But are you doing all the orders through there,
No,
or okay.
no, nothing, unfortunately. I did an art show late 2020, December 2020, and that was the first realization I have to get digital. Like, I had to set up Square so I could take credit
Okay.
cards.
Yep.
Prior to that, it was like, you gave me cash and that was it, and I didn't no bookkeeping. So I figured out right after the art show that Square, I could create a website through Square.
Yep.
It was kind of convenient because I had all the pictures of the things I didn't sell already in Square, and I was real gung ho about it. I uploaded the first couple of T-shirts to it, and and it's pretty much been
That's it.
dormant since. But
Right.
that's another. Obviously, that's part of my whole digital is getting
Definitely. So how do people order from you now,
everything.
primarily?
Everything is through instant message on Instagram. Everything. Like I would say, my business, with the exception of a small percentage of friends, and even most of them through Instagram, but everything is through Instagram, direct messaging me, and I got to kind of that's gonna be part of separating my work and business life
Right.
because I created an email that not one single
Doesn't
person in the
need.
world has for
Okay.
business.
But yeah, I mean, I would imagine that.
Maybe my friend Jake could help me out a little bit with the
Yeah.
website.
No, I mean, if you ever have any questions or anything, just let me know. I'm always
No,
here to help.
it's definitely it would be a lot nicer to not have and again I like dealing with people. I like
Right.
interacting with people, clients and stuff like that. But it would
Right.
be nice to just when they DM me and say, "Hey, I want that shirt," for me to just send my link for my website and
And by the way though, like I am very much the same way too. Like I enjoyed messaging with people back and forth. And I think when I kind of started the website, I wanted to make it known too that I wasn't trying to ignore people, you know. It is, but for
no,
me it
it
is like
helps
that.
keep track.
Right.
Yeah.
It's keeping track, and it's also just for consistency's sake too, because a lot of the time what happens is I'll go back and forth with somebody a few times. I mean, obviously you know this from ordering with me, but I'll go back and forth with you a few times to do a mock up, and maybe you want the design a little bigger, a little smaller. So my goal was actually to kind of
Give you
eliminate that for everybody, save a
yeah.
little time in the
No,
sense
and it
that
does. It makes sense.
you can just put it on the shirt, you determine what size you want it, and then that's it. And then now I have an idea what you want, you already knew what you want, so it's easier. But I agree too, like that personal connection of being able to just reach out to somebody,
Yeah, I
talk to
mean,
somebody is important as well.
two of my really really good friends. One I've met in person, the other one I've never even met in person.
Mm.
They're fellow artists on Instagram that just from that interaction, whether I ordered something from them or they ordered a T-shirt from me or however it worked, and so you build those relationships with people,
Yeah.
and I got plenty of friends on Instagram that I've never met in real life that DM me constantly and order stuff from me, and
Right.
you know
That's interesting too, because I remember I don't know why I remember this specifically, but I remember you posted something. It was just a repost from another page, I think. Um, but the post said something along the lines of your clients will become your friends more than your friends will become your clients, or something like that. And I thought that was really interesting,
it's kind of
like idea.
yeah, it puts things into perspective. I've it's kind of crazy to say, but like I've been in bars handfuls of times where people will be like, they'll see my hat or my shirt and I tuned out. I follow him on Instagram, and
Yeah,
it's me.
yeah,
Or
it's me.
people will be like, "Is that you?" And then at the same time, there's people that I've known for my whole life that I don't even know follow me on Instagram, and they'll come over and be like, "Oh, I really love that Scooby Doo piece you did." Like,
Right,
that they're on Instagram, they seeing it and just not interacting, and
right.
not that I care, but it just
No.
puts things into perspective as
No, and at the same time, like I'm not one to push people. Like, obviously, I'll share things online, and it's always great when you have your friends interact with it
Mhm.
and stuff like that. This podcast, though, I released the first one like an hour ago before we started recording this, and I was sending it to I just send it to like my close friends and stuff. But even then, like I'm making fun of myself too. I'm like, you guys don't have to watch this. I don't give a shit. Like whatever happens, happens. Um,
Yeah, but you got to change that
but
mentality to like watch my podcast because it's really good stuff.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like for me anyway, I don't mind if they don't want to watch it. I don't want them to just interact with something because they feel like they have to. Obviously like we'll still be friends at the end of the day. I'm not gonna like
No,
disregard
but
them,
I think that's
but
important
it is
too.
important.
I had posted a while ago. Literally, I forget what it was that I posted, but two of my good friends, both extremely talented artists, they messaged me back to back, and one of them was great work, killer work as always, fire emojis, all the rest of it, and the other one like basically ripped me a new one,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I appreciate both of them, like
You need
it's
both.
huge, and
Yeah.
the one that ripped me a new one, like out of the 400 things I've posted, like I can tell you which ones he liked because there was only three of them, you know what I mean,
Right.
and to me that's huge to me because that means that I know he's scrutinizing. I know he's zooming in on my pictures and looking at my line work and all the rest of that.
Right.
And I think it's important. I think it's important for your friends to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. No, you definitely need that. If you have too many people just coming up to you and kissing ass and
I think
not
I
telling you the
posted both.
truth.
I think I put both of their DMs in one message and said like equally important friends to have. And it's
Yeah.
true.
It is. You need both. You need just enough encouragement to keep going, and you need just enough scrutiny to keep a little, your feet on the ground, and a
Yeah.
little sense of reality is
Yeah,
definitely
and you need that one friend that,
important.
that'll turn around and tell you when I get in my head a lot about things, I take on projects. I did a canvas for somebody a while back that was like 3 feet by 4 feet. And the biggest I had ever did before that was, 16 by 20. And I was in my head about it. And, you need that person to be like, dude, what are you stressing about? You got it. You're going
Right.
to kill it. You're going to kill it.
Right.
And that's it, that confidence to people that, know you can do it, and
Right.
I post out a lot about things about, the ones that believed in you before you believed in yourself. And there's a handful of people out there that I remember their words to me when I was kind of like, we'll see how this goes. They're like, what do you mean? See how this goes? It's gonna go somewhere, and
Yeah.
you need to believe that. And
Yep. Yeah, you need those people. And I think it's true. You need that first person before you do something, right?
hmm
That positive person before you do something, and you need that negative scrutinizer after you do it. You get that before person to give you that push to do it, and you get that other person who's going to tear it apart just to keep you a little
yeah,
reality, because you do
yeah,
need that. At the
of
end of the day, if they have a valid um critique of your work, if they have a valid critique of my business, whatever it is, that's important for growth. Like, you do need to realize, what are my weak points and where can I
no,
get
it's
better?
it's huge. And like I said, and especially even just for the recognition from the person that's always telling you like you need to do this differently. You need to your shadows are off, or whatever the case may be. When they do give you positive feedback, you're like, well, I'm obviously doing something
Right.
right. I did what they told me to do, and
Right.
I got it.
Yeah. I saw another thing. I saw, it was a brief video. I think it might have been on TikTok or something. So, and I take everything with a grain of salt that I see on social media, but I did think that this one point that I saw was a good point. The guy was talking about different types of employees, right? And essentially he had a chart where it was loyalty and productivity, right? So you have a high productivity person with high loyalty, and obviously, like, that's the person that you want. You want somebody
Yeah, of
highly
course.
loyal, highly productive. And the last person you want is a less loyal individual as an employee. But I think that also correlates to having friends too, right? You want that person's loyalty but not just in the sense that they're gonna, be there for you, in the sense that they're gonna be real with you and give you that
Yeah.
honest feedback. It's
Yeah,
definitely
and no matter
important.
what, whether it's to ground you, to bring you back down, or
Yeah.
yeah, whatever the case may be.
Or just give you somewhere to work off of. If you don't know that you need to improve on something, you might never actually improve on it. So,
Yeah, of course. And my goal is to just keep improving. Yeah.
right. And I think, so the flip side of that quote, the other part of the post that I was mentioning before, um, was your clients becoming friends, which I thought was an interesting phenomena or idea, whatever you want to call it. I thought it was interesting for a couple of reasons. I mean, obviously, like, a lot of the people that I have come to work with, you, Menzo's, a lot of the other people I've made shirts for, they have become like friends in a sense where, I'll message, if I see something about the Yankees,
Yeah,
or a
I was
funny
just gonna say
meme,
that.
I'll message
Yeah.
that to you. It's not always just business.
Anytime I see the
And I have a
Spirit
podcast.
Halloween on City Field, it's definitely going to you.
Yeah,
I'm definitely sending
exactly.
that to you.
Exactly. But that's my point. It's not just
No, and
business.
yeah,
It's
I think
it's
that's
beyond that.
huge. It's huge, and
Yeah.
I,
These
I think a lot of the progress I've made, and a lot of the things that I've stepped out of my comfort zone to do. My two friends, Junior Charles and Jay Rosie, and that they shout out to both of them for being extremely talented artists and for literally pushing me through on a lot of things, most things. Who,
right.
like I said, I think I'm closer with them than most people that I've known most of my life.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's interesting to see that happen and have that correlation between uh, you know, an artist and a business owner having that same experience. I think that's just like a human experience in a certain sense,
Yeah,
like
absolutely. It keeps. I
meeting
think that's
people.
important. I follow a guy on Instagram, JC Rowe. He does all triangles in his pieces. He does a lot of Jordan type things, sneakers type things, and
It's like mosaics almost.
yeah, and
Okay.
I've been following him forever, 8 9 years. I have some prints of his, and he, when I first started following him, he had 10,000 followers, and anytime I messaged him about something or responded to his story, he always responded, and it was never just like he liked my comment. He'd always be like, "Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that." Or, I'd ask him questions about like how do you possibly price a mural that size, and he always had honest feedback. And now his prints of 10 times the price that they were, and he's got 180,000 followers, and
Right.
and he still answers messages. I mean, I'm a stranger. We don't know each we're not friends. We didn't and I think that's part of his success is that he's always interacts with
Yeah.
his customers, non-customers, clients, followers, and I think I think it's his key to his success.
Yeah. And that's one of the benefits of social media, I think too. Like there's a lot of people bring up the negatives of it, and obviously those are very real. There's issues with social media, but I think it is something that creates more accessibility, and it creates certain communities that allow people to interact with each other that they never would have known. Like you just said, you've never met that person in real life, but
Yeah.
you're still able to talk to him, get feedback, learn things, share your experiences. Like it's
Hmm.
so important when you're talking
See
about it.
see different walks of life and where people come from, and
Right. And get inspiration for other things too, like sometimes I know I watch a lot of YouTube videos of other creators. I'm forgetting the guy's name right now, but he has I posted it actually. He has this giant print shop that he like turned this whole like this giant garage that he made. He put it up just specifically to be a print shop, and then he has all of these amazing pieces of equipment. Like I watch his process just so I can learn like what types of machines is he using? Like
yeah,
how's he grown that?
YouTube is great on a lot of things. I mean, even just hobby stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been so for the past couple of weeks I made an announcement when I wanted to start this podcast, and then like 3 weeks went by and I didn't do anything because in that time I actually started renovating my sister's apartment, like top to bottom, floors,
YouTube
yeah,
construction.
floors, kitchen, bathroom, all of it. And I'd learned it all from YouTube. It was crazy. I was like, going into it, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I just had some blind ego that like I was gonna somehow get this done. But actually when it got down to it and like learning stuff, YouTube was such a great like tool in that regard.
It's
Just
fun.
learning that.
It's funny. I've been trying to, obviously art was my hobby. Cars were my hobby my whole life, and then I made it my career, and
Right.
no longer had a hobby, and then now art. And even though I'm still working on a lot of things that I want to do. I decided I wanted to start making like city dioramas,
Right.
brick walls, alleyways, and stuff. And I haven't watched TV in a month. That's all I've been doing is watching people create them on YouTube. And like you said, but blind ego, like I'm like I could do that. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And
You need some of that sometimes.
but
Just
luckily now at the studio, like I
yeah.
can mix the two because I have all the equipment there to do it, whether it be paint or knives or this and that, and I
Yeah.
can have the space to do it as well.
Yeah.
So look out for Tooned dioramas coming soon.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see that. Every time you put something else out, I just it's cool to me to see because I'm not somebody who can necessarily draw like that, and to be able to actually do that with without Procreate. Like for me, I can kind of draw a little bit with Procreate because it'll fix my lines. It'll fix my lines for me, and I can fill in something. I don't have to worry about saturating colors or anything like that. So to see somebody actually be able to do that with just a hand and a marker, and that's crazy to me. That's impressive to me.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess I mean we talked a little bit about like the technology and the art, obviously just mentioning Procreate. What do you think about other pieces of technology in artwork? I know a big topic recently has been like AI art.
AI.
What do you think about that?
I didn't look too much into it. People were that AI is stealing from artists and stuff like that, which I have no doubt. I'm sure it is and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I guess it doesn't affect me because I don't do digital work.
Right.
Um, I got a lot of listen. There's some people online that artists, digital artists that may have never picked up a pencil in their lives that are phenomenal at what they do. Um, it's just not for me. Like again, I'm gonna have to create things digitally,
Right.
but I'm gonna still continue to do pencil and paper and probably transfer that to
Right.
digital, because that's part of my process. I enjoy it. And as far as digital goes in the art world, like that's some people's thing, just not mine.
I think also at a certain point it kind of corrects a little bit of the digital aspect of it because you kind of brought up a good point there in the sense that if it's copying from artists, right, the AI, the algorithm that runs that machine is pulling things off of the internet. If that artwork is never on the internet to begin with, I mean, obviously they probably could pull from like an Instagram post or something if you post it like that. But at the same time, it might promote more people to do physical works of art with physical mediums and medias because that would prevent theft and somebody else using your artwork. That could be an interest. I wonder how that's going to work out.
I think people's issue is that they're not getting like that. Not that they're stealing, that they're not getting the credit for it. So I
Right.
think if there's a way for,
Right.
you know,
An interesting point that Raphael brought up when I was talking to him was that it is kind of like the idea, if you look at it in a certain way, it's the idea that, well, artists, quote unquote, quote unquote, steal from other artists. It's not that they're stealing, it's that they're really inspired by those artworks. You see something that you like, and then maybe you try to replicate that, and then that influences your style moving
yeah,
forwards.
of course,
So it is somewhat similar to what the algorithm is doing, in the sense that it's seeing these, it's just scanning all these other artworks and then creating a different or a similar style based on that. So you could maybe somehow justify it like that too.
yeah. Like I said, I didn't really look too much into it or think too much into. I guess
Yeah,
like a typical human, it didn't affect me too much, so I didn't give it that much thought. But
fair enough.
um, yeah, but I definitely artists definitely take from other artists. There's no doubt about that. I
Yeah,
see plenty of things that I'll send people a piece of artwork from somebody else and be like, this is what I want to achieve. This is the thought. This is what I have in the back of my brain. But that's just it was there already. It was
right,
there already, and then somebody came up that was doing what was on my brain, and I'm like, yes, I'm gonna
right.
take.
Well, I think it's fine too, because at a certain point, even a lot of some of the work that you do, working with different cartoons and stuff, right? Like obviously an artist made those characters, but at the same time, like you're using those characters to create something new and something in a different aspect, or you're merging two characters in a way that they've never been merged before. Like
Ah,
there's ways to take uh, a certain idea or a property and then
make it your
alter it.
own.
Yeah, make
Yeah.
it your own. So I think that's important too for people to
I mean, and the
understand.
cartoons that I draw are literally the reason that I draw. The nostalgia of it,
Yeah.
and Bugs Bunny and the Bugs Bunny cartoons. I mean, that was like it literally represents my childhood. It makes me happy, and from what I'm starting to see is like that's what people say to me all the time. Like, oh my god, that character you drew, like I forgot about him,
Right.
and so I think it's big for me. For me, obviously, to use characters and stuff like that, Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. Like, there's a reason for it. It's the
Hmm.
paying homage.
Yeah. Let's go a little bit further into that too, because I think that's an interesting avenue to explore, like the cartoon element. How was your childhood and the things that you viewed as a popular media? How did that influence your art now?
Um, well, I have a sister that's 10 years older than me. I was a tomboy, so I kind of inherited Star Wars figures,
Hmm.
GI Joes and He Man, and which are all, excuse me, obviously all classics and things that I loved growing up. And then I think I was born at the right time because late '80s is when you had Simpsons came out and
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles came out, and like I remember the Ninja Turtles being a phenomenon. Like that's all the commercials for the toys and the cartoons and they were on everything. And like at my age, like we kind of felt like we owned those cartoons. Those were our cartoons. So that's why you see a lot of Simpsons from me and a lot of Ninja Turtles from me because I remember that being such a good time in my life. I remember walking into Toys R Us and that's what you saw. There was Ninja Turtles hanging, an entire wall of Ninja Turtles. Like, and I think I'm trying to recreate that feeling for a lot of people that
Yeah.
I love when people say to me like, I haven't seen that cartoon in 30 years.
Yeah.
You
Brings
know,
back good memories, I guess.
yeah. I mean, I remember staying up late. My mother let me stay up on a Sunday school night to watch whatever Looney Tunes special was out, the Easter special, or
Right.
and I remember it being a big deal to me. I remember being like super excited to watch that and that come on. And same thing. I mean, sometimes when I'm drawing now and stuff like that, like I'll put on Looney Tunes from the beginning and just, they're
Yeah.
only like they're only like 6 minutes a piece, the
Yeah. They're
clips,
short.
but and just let it rock for hours, like and I remember them.
That's interesting because, I mean, for me anyway, growing up, obviously in a different generation, when I was growing up, cartoons didn't really have that effect for some reason, And I do realize, because I have seen, I do kind of know what you're talking about just from doing my own research and seeing different documentaries about, like the '80s and the '90s and the advent of all of these different cartoons and properties and things. It's interesting to see how that kind of faded away from my generation because,
Commercials.
yeah,
I think literally the fact that you had more internet and, probably less commercials on TV or DVRs and stuff like that and able to skip. But
Right.
like commercials are what fueled us. They had the wrestling ring set up with new wrestling figures, and there was two kids your age,
Right.
acting them out. Like it almost it made you want what they had.
Right.
The huge GI Joe battleships and stuff that most kids didn't own, but like you got to see it on TV every
Right.
single day. And when
Yeah.
something new came out, like it was a way for them to put it in your face, to show it to you, and make you want it.
Well, a lot of those things, especially in the 80s and the 90s, were based on the toys. I remember I was watching a Ninja Turtles documentary. Just I forgot exactly what it was
I
referring
think
to, but they were talking about the whole idea of having the four turtles with different mask colors, because originally all the
they were,
masks
yeah,
were what,
red.
red? Yeah, they changed the mask colors so that now you had to buy four toys. You didn't just buy one turtle.
Yeah.
You bought four with different masks and different weapons and
And that was part of the thing too, is obviously now anybody that collects toys now is my age and older and stuff like
right,
that. And so you're not seeing those things on the shelves and stuff. And like I said, you went to Toys R Us and there was a whole wall of it, and there was 100 toys up there, or 100 different figures, and your goal was to try to get the ones that you didn't already have. It might have been a no name character, a character that was in one episode, but they made a figure of it, and you
right.
had to have it because you were missing it.
Right. I think that's kind of that could be one of the things when I think about it anyway. The reason why I think my generation didn't have that attachment to cartoons is just because by the time you got to like the early 2000s and everything was so commercialized that it was no longer special. Like the the creation of these products for these cartoons, it was something unique that I don't think had been done before in like the 80s. But by the time you get to the 2000s, it's like there's a toy for every show and cartoon and everything out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was like
And there's a
the
million shows.
the,
It's
the
not just a
Sears
few cartoons.
catalog and the Toys R Us. We used to get the Toys R Us big book, a couple months before Christmas, and there was something about. I mean, I knew that I was going to circle 400 things in that catalog, and I'd be lucky if I got one or two of them from it. But there was something about seeing the turtle van when it came out, or the sewer setup that you could look at. It was in a magazine that was sent to you at your house, and I would circle all these things and stuff like that. And it was almost like you were collecting them before you even had them,
Right.
and I think that's what it was. It was commercials, it was magazines, it was going to toy stores. I
Right.
mean, you were probably on the cusp of losing
Yeah.
KB
Yeah.
and
I
and
mean,
all the.
I had Toys R Us and stuff, but it wasn't as prevalent, obviously, and also being right on the edge of the internet,
Excuse
coming
me.
out with that. Obviously, I think there were gone were catalogs. Now everything's just like click a button and it gets shipped to your house. Like you lose kind of that
Yeah,
experience of going and hunting for something. It's just like
yeah, that was another thing I was gonna touch on too. Like, the when we were younger, between me, my sisters, and stuff like that, like my mother knew delivery schedules for Toys R Us on Central Avenue. Like she knew
right,
what days they were getting shipments in, because if you didn't act fast, and like you said, it was the hunt, it was the physically seeing it. I mean, I remember I went into Toys R Us right before they closed. I figured Toys R Us is closing. I got to go in one more time, and like it didn't even feel like a toy store. There
yeah,
was. I remember I used to walk into Toys R Us, and there was all the board games. I didn't even like board games, but it was so cool to walk in and physically see them, and
right,
hundreds of each one lined up. And then the same thing with the toys. Like there was toys that you knew you were never getting, but you got to physically see them and lay your eyes on them.
yeah.
And
I don't think that's lost on like my generation either, though, because I was talking to Dave in the first episode, and he was talking about how originally when he started creating his clothing brand, he was doing everything made to order. So it was just if somebody ordered them, he would have it made, right, and then it would get shipped to them. And he's around my age, and he didn't like that either because he likes the idea of having shirts in stock so that people can
yeah,
come in. He puts them up in his shop in the shop that he works at, Walk and Bolt in White Plains. So he puts them up there, and he likes the aspect of people coming in, being able to take a shirt off the rack, look at it, feel it.
yeah, yeah. It's
Like that
that's.
stuff's important.
I'm not saying I don't order off Amazon, but there's plenty of things that
Yeah,
I will go to the store to go get, just because I
yeah,
want to physically see it. I want to.
yeah. I don't think I
Maybe
think
that stems from the childhood, but
no, I don't. But again, like I don't think it's even just you and your generation. It's I think people moving forward now are kind of wanting that experience too.
like you
It's
said, things became so far out of touch and so not personal
yeah,
that people.
It's
People
not
want
exciting
that.
anymore. You know, you just order things and they show up at your door. Like, yes, it's convenient and it's definitely very helpful in a lot of ways because, you know, people have more access to things, but at the same time, you lose the excitement of going out there, getting something and bringing it
Absolutely,
back.
absolutely.
And even sometimes, you know, at the same time too, the excitement, but also the disappointment of going somewhere and it's sold out. You know, while that's not a great feeling, it just makes it that much more exciting when you finally do find it,
Yeah, of
right?
course. Like I said, I could tell you the amount of times I went to a toy store or somewhere like that and actually got what it was I wanted. But there was just something about every time you were in cross county, like you had to stop in KB Toys and look around and see what was new, and it was just, you kind of felt like you won just being able to go to the toy store, whether you
Yeah,
physically got something or not.
definitely. Hmm. So I guess just to kind of wrap it up and put a bow on this, obviously we've talked about a lot of the ways that you plan annual plans and things like that. So just to kind of give people a perspective of what you are planning to do in the future, what would you say your 10-year vision is? Like you can do whatever you want and things work out perfectly and you are just straight growth from here on out. In a perfect world, what's your 10-year vision? What do you want to be doing?
Already made it. No longer creating art and in the woods somewhere with a bunch of dogs.
Just you and your dogs in the woods?
No, I'd just like to be more.
It's not a bad.
I've been lucky to say that I can pretty much judge now. I know what my income is going to be for the month. Obviously, January for most businesses and stuff are slow. Just November, December for me are enormous.
Right.
I just want to be a little bit more on a steady flow of income. Like I said, I'd like to have more. I think prints and all that kind of stuff and merch. I think I would like that to be a lot more balanced with my artwork
Okay.
as far as income and branding, and I'd like to see a lot more tuned out hats and hoodies and tees on the street. I'd like it to be more recognizable to your
Yeah.
average person. And just 10 years from now, I hope I continue to grow the way I've grown every year since. And as long as that happens, I think I'll continue to be happy.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, you talked about the studio too. Do you have any aspirations to like maybe grow that or do something else in the studio, like
yeah.
art shows or anything like that?
Yeah, I have a pretty decent spot now where I can separate where I can do both. I can do my artwork, and if I decide to want to have a gallery event, or whether it be for myself or another artist, I would definitely like to start hosting, other people's artwork within my studio. I don't know if it's even necessarily going to be this year, but that's the future plan, to have Friday, Saturday night, gallery events where
Awesome.
people can come and view the art. I mean, I don't really have much inventory as a problem. Lately, I've been working on things that like I'm not posting that I don't want to sell because I want them in the studio. I want them to hang on my walls, and I want the way it sells for somebody to come in and be like, I like that. I want
Yeah.
that. Can I have that?
Yeah, you got to keep it
Um,
stocked. Have
but
something for people to
if
see.
all goes well, knock on wood, I'd like to stay in the studio for the near future. And next step after that is I'd like to build something. Like I said, I want a house with some property where I can build myself a garage,
Right.
or I can do woodworking if I want to build a frame or stuff like that. Like I want that to be accessible to me. I want painting to be in another area and my office to be separate, and that's my goal. I know I could see what it is that I want, and that's my next step from here. So
Awesome.
if all goes well, I'll be working from a home studio.
Yeah.
Plenty of dogs around me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't wait
There's
to
always
see.
dogs in the mix, man.
Yeah, I know. I know you love your dog. I need to get my own place so I can get another dog. But
It's funny though, because he does help me as far as balancing that. Like I said, he doesn't lay there for 12 hours straight. Like I got to walk him. I spend a
Mhm.
lot of time in the woods and on trails and stuff like that, which I think helps me because obviously wasn't getting up in the morning and going to, for a 3 hour walk through the woods in the morning by myself. And I think it
Right.
helps the brain. I think a lot. I
Yeah,
think
no,
about what it
I
is that
went
I want
hiking
to.
yesterday. I try to go hiking once a week just because it's something that helps me clear my mind and
Yeah, I used to listen to music. I'd put my AirPods in and I'd let the dog walk, and obviously my head on a swivel and pay attention. But like I stopped because I want to be lost in my thoughts. I want
yep.
to think about future projects.
Yep.
I want to think about characters that I haven't done before, and that all helps me clear my mind. It's quiet. He's happy. I'm happy. We're both kind of in our happy place, and he reminds me to eat lunch, and he reminds me that get up and stretch my legs once in a while, and it's just kind of cool having somebody there that doesn't talk to me ever.
Definitely. Well, I can't wait to see where you take everything and how it all kind of unfolds for you
I
and see
appreciate
that
that. I
growth.
appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for
Um,
supporting me all along.
yeah, no, thank you for helping me out too. Obviously, it's mutually beneficial. So before we go, just let everybody know like where they can find you, how to order, all that stuff.
Instagram, it's at tuned_out. All O's are zeros. T00ned _0UT. What my website is in my bio, but it's kind of useless at the moment. But
DM to
keep
order.
keep checking it because there's gonna be merch on there soon. DM to order anything you want. There's plenty of merch. If you see something I've posted, t-shirt wise, hoodie wise, and it doesn't seem to be in stock, I can definitely do that for you with the help of M3 merch.
Yep.
Got to plug the merch company.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely reach out to him and thanks
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 for
for your
having
call
me,
today.
man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Bye everybody.
Take care.